everybody. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. And it's been a while. It has been over a year since I have made a full video. I've posted some shorts here or there, but so much has been going on. It has been nothing less than a whirlwind. And I'm going to tell you today my story, and I'm even going to take my story back a little bit to sort of give you a sense of where it all started from and what has brought me to this point. So if you're having a hard time, if all the plans that you made for yourself didn't necessarily turn out how you had hoped, we know that life is like that. We can make the best of plans, but it won't necessarily work out exactly how you plan. Anyways, grab a coffee, settle in, and listen to my story. Now, as I said, I'm gonna take it all the way back to the beginning. Back into, I would say, 2018, I made a decision to accept a package from a very well-paying job of almost 14 years. I made the decision mostly because of health reasons. I had been putting my health on the back burner for so long. Due to a very demanding job. I was an operations manager at the time. I was managing 3 teams. When the opportunity came around where the offer was made, the company was going through restructuring, and I was presented with an offer to take a package or to go to another site to manage a different team. I opted to take the package because the option of going to the other site was going to place additional strain, additional stress on me, and I would have just continued the pattern of not putting my health first. It was a situation where I was working at that time. I was driving 10 minutes to my home. And the new location would literally have an hour's commute there and back. So an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening coming home. And it was a much more difficult team to deal with. So I decided to take the package. I even negotiated for a higher package. So I ended up leaving with 1.5 years worth of pay. So I thought this was the opportunity. This is what I needed to now, dial things down, focus on my health. I had some surgeries I knew I needed to do. I had to get knee replacements. I was living each day in complete and total agony and not taking care of that. And I knew that had to stop. I had to start putting myself first. So the plan was to take a year, take care of my health, and then to begin taking my career in a different direction. In 2020, I had that first operation in January of 2020. That was the first setback because that took longer than I thought, because the package was in October of 2018, and then I had to wait. And then in January of 2020, it was like a year and 4 months or so later, I had the first operation. Lucky for me, though, that I did, because as you know, after that, the world, just sort of fell apart. Everything was a complete shutdown where I'm living in Ontario. The only place you could go to were grocery stores, right? And even then, you had to line up. You had to line up. I'll never forget. The images are like literally seared into my brain. The images of people lining up to go into grocery stores, to go into a bank, into whatever. And essentially our province remained shut down for pretty much 2 years. They tried reopening for a little while in the summer, and then by that September the numbers skyrocketed again, and we were back into a full, and when I say full shutdown, I mean everything was shut down. Downtown Toronto, the hub of the country, eerie. It was like tumbleweeds on the roads. So all the plans that I had made, I had planned to do my surgery. That was the whole point of taking the package, do my surgery, get my health on track. And then I would start down the road of building, my self-employment career and work harder for myself rather than work harder for someone else. And that was the plan. But all those plans essentially went out the window. In 2020 to 2021, I experienced the loss of my mother, my sister, and my godfather. So literally, I lost my mom in April of 2020, then I lost my sister in October of 2020, then I lost my godfather the following April. So it was literally in 12 months that I lost the three of them, and that came with its own financial challenges. I was able, through the pandemic and the shutdowns, I was able to at least secure some work from home work. Of course, it was at a much, much lower rate of pay than I was used to, like literally half the rate of pay that I was used to. But I was glad to at least, because at this point, my package is running out, because I had no plans for things to sort of extend as long as they did. So during the time of shutdowns, I had to take out second mortgage. That is what I relied on to help me through this time. And financially, things only continue to get worse as our province and our country and the world started to open up. The impacts, of course, of those rising costs, now those became a reality, right? Every expense I had, every expense went up. And, the Bank of Canada, they weren't helping because, they began their assaults on the interest rates over here. Driving, it really decimated most people, drove so much people just right down into the dust. For me, my first mortgage went up $400 a month. My second mortgage went up $600 a month. My maintenance fees for my condo fees went up $150 a month. Even my car insurance went up $30 a month. Hydro bill, which is our electric bill, up, not to mention the cost of food. Well, what the hell with that, right? The cost of food, it's just staggering to even now, that, the cost of food is where it is while these grocery stores, these executives and these stores are raking in record profits. Well, anyways, all of these increases for me happened, from about August to September 2022. And during this time, my daughter was starting a new college program. Yeah, let's throw that on top of it. And the kicker was she had applied for housing, for student housing. And, she applied early because it's something that you have to do early or else, you just can't get in. So she applied early, which was from like the previous year. So we were hoping that, okay, you know what, things will be good. Everything will be on track by then. And by the time you start in September, well, that wasn't the case. All these increases for me happened, in August, and there she was starting school in September. We tried to get out of the rental, but they said, no, you're still responsible for it. If not, you're not going to take it. You have to sublet. We tried. It was too last minute. We tried to see if we could sublet. We posted it, but then in the end, she ended up moving in. So here I was now, and while that happened as well, I had become unemployed again because my company that I was working from home, they the costs were too high. They essentially moved operations overseas for the call center. So at least for the function that I was doing, I was a QA analyst at the time, and they decided to move the QA department overseas. So I was on unemployment. So during this time of rising costs, rising everything, I count them all on my hands. During this cost of these times of these rising costs, then her going to school, it was again or more off of the second mortgage. It was money off of the line of credit, and it was just snowballing just like that. So now I was found that it was that I had to shoulder the responsibility of now her rental, my mortgage, and everything else. The responsibility of all of it, of course, was crushing. But we figured, okay, maybe we'll work our way through it. Her student loans would cover a portion, and she would get a part-time job, and that's how we tried to work it out. Well, the student loans, she qualified for a lot less than what we thought she would. Still doesn't make sense to me, because generally if the parent is in like a well-paying job, I can understand, but I literally was on unemployment at the time she applied for the student loan. I wasn't working, so the student loan essentially covered her tuition fees, and there was a little bit left, and there we were. I had to now buy groceries, not just for my home, but for hers. So every week she came home, I had groceries waiting for her to take back with her. She did find a part-time job a few months after in school, but that job didn't pay very much, so it would help out a little bit. It would make it so that she wasn't sort of destitute while she was living there, that she could try to enjoy some student life. But the responsibility of her groceries and making up whatever fraction of the rent she needed, that essentially fell into 2023. That year began with me starting a new job and a promotion a few months later. But despite those successes, the financial struggles continued and only got worse with the rising costs and the several increases in my monthly budget that I mentioned before. By mid-year, I had to make a decision to sell my home. It still gets me to now that it came to that. I was so proud of that accomplishment, and but I couldn't see any other way. There was no other way out, and with the house prices now falling due to the historically high interest rates, my window to secure a sale was quickly closing. Thankfully, I put the house up for sale the first week in June of 2023, and the process was another level of stress, I'd have to say. Initial listing price was not what I wanted it to be, and that was a whole thing with my agent. I put it up, I got an offer the very first day, and I had to decline it because the purchaser came in with an offer on my actual listing price, which was lower than I wanted. So now I felt I had nowhere to go, because okay, that's what I listed it for, they're offering full price, and I had to decline it. It just felt a little disingenuous to me. So anyways, after that first day and that happened, the next day I had her pull it down and relisted a bit higher. It wasn't listed at exactly where I wanted it. It was probably listed about 10,000 or so lower than what I wanted. I was hoping that, okay, at least her logic was that, you list lower, you drive interest, but my situation was so desperate, I just didn't want to like risk any of that. So anyways, we did compromise. I listed closer to what I wanted, because she was like a full $50,000 below where I wanted, and I was not willing to let it go for that low. So in the end, I listed for about $10,000 under where I actually wanted, but I was still comfortable enough that if somebody came in with that number and I had no other offers, I was comfortable enough to say, okay, you know what, I can take that. So, that's where we were. After I relisted, after the third day, I got another buyer, and there we go. We had a signed agreement. So I started the process of packing and going through all of the emotional stress of, the feeling of, that, I had set out to accomplish something, and I felt like a failure, and I had to really struggle with that emotion, and realized that a lot of what happened, of course, was so much out of my control. And I think that's the lesson that I want, that's the point. It's not even really a lesson, but it's a point that I really want to get across here to everybody, is that you can have the best plans in place, but there are circumstances that will come out of the woodwork, out of the blue, and will just knock you sideways, or having the house on the market. I got that buyer after the third day of relisting, and 3 weeks in, or I believe it was 10 days in, when it was supposed to solidify, they backed out. I was very, very upset about that, because now I had wasted 3 weeks with this buyer, and they backed out. Gave them back their deposit money, the whole nine. So we relisted again, and after 4 days of relisting, I got yet another offer. This one was right. It was $5,000 less than the listing price, but at this time, the Bank of Canada had made yet another interest rate hike. I believe at this time it was either the third or the fourth one. So I was getting very, very anxious, and I was getting very worried, because people they weren't shopping for homes as much anymore, because the interest rate was historically high at this point, right? So, I looked at it and I'm like, okay, this person they actually came in $10,000 less than what I offered. And my offer was actually $10,000 less than what I wanted. So I was like 20 grand down here at this point. So, I took a chance and signed it back, adding $5,000, and they accepted right away. I probably could have added the $10,000 and they probably would have accepted, but I didn't do that, so my loss. So we had a sale. It went through. We closed very quickly, and I was finding a rental. Now that was difficult due to the housing crisis, with the assault on the interest rate, as I call it. It had just thrown the housing market into complete and utter chaos here in Canada. And because there was so much turmoil with the home, I didn't have time to secure a rental before my sale. And then because everything moved so quickly and there was closing, and I had to prepare to leave the house, I said, okay, you know what? Things are hard. Like I had no money. I had no money to even secure a rental. There was one option that my real estate agent brought to me. She said, okay, we do have a house. It's actually available for when you close. This was probably like a week before my closing. But because the housing market was what it became, it was like a dog-eat-dog world. She said they want $12,000 up front. And I'm like, If I had $12,000 up front, like literally, I wouldn't even be selling my house. I don't have $12,000, right? So, but that was, what was going on in the rental market now. It was not, it was not like days gone by, where now they wanted 6 months and they were taking offers and, reviewing the best offers and all of that. So I just couldn't be in that world because my finances, the way they were, could not support anything like that. So after the house sale, I had to stay in a temporary rental. And here's the kicker. After the house sale, I was actually in hotels first. So we went to a hotel. I got the money from the sale, and then now I was ready to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to find one of those rentals, and that did not work out at all. The housing market, it was just crazy, and it was just chaos. So I ended up getting a temp rental, which, it's an apartment, condo, I should say, and it's one of the higher end condos, but you can imagine it costs mint to live in here. But while I was in the hotel, which I only stayed in a hotel for about maybe a week and a half after selling the house, I had vacation days booked, and because I couldn't secure the rental before my vacation days ended, I let my manager know I needed some extra days. Well, I had just started that job in January, right? And although I was promoted and, was in a new job, they had rules that they didn't provide any leave of absence if you were less than a year of employment. I thought that, because I wasn't asking for a month, I wasn't asking for 2 months, I was just literally asking for a few extra days so that I could situate myself. Turns out I ended up losing my job. They put me down as having resigned when that wasn't the case. So here I was, I lost my house, lost my job, and so now how do I go and find a permanent rental? I had no job to put on my application. So therein was another problem. So that is the reason why I ended up in the temp rental, because the temp rental, you don't have to provide any sort of documentation like that. So here I am now, I find myself starting all over from scratch, living in a very high rental condo. But this seems to be the norm nowadays. I'm currently working a full-time and a part-time job, which took me about 5 months after losing that job to start these new jobs. But yeah, working full-time, working part-time, and also I'm still self-employed, doing various side hustles, right? Recovering from all these hits has been so hard, and even though I shut down for a while, and I shut down, I had to get back up and focus myself. Whatever my plans were before, pre-pandemic, that was out the window. I have to make a new plan, and that's not easy to do at my age, especially so close to retirement. I know I'm not the first, and I definitely won't be the last. I'm trying not to dwell on what was or used to be. If you have had a setback and you find yourself having to take your life in a whole different direction than you anticipated, just know there are a lot of people in your shoes, young, middle-aged, and even seniors. I'm so surprised to read the stories and hear the stories on the news of seniors in their senior years having to start all over because of things that the world just blew up, right? It's just a terrible consequence of, a world impacted by pandemic, and then the subsequent conflicts that, are happening in other parts of the world right now that just exacerbated an already strained situation. I mean, it really was just the perfect storm, wasn't it? Yeah, and the interest rates, that really was the final nail in my coffin, certainly. And I know for a lot of people, there's a lot of people who have lost thousands and thousands of dollars because they had plans, and yeah, In my next video, I'm going to share my quarterly budget. I know we're well into Q2, but I will review what it looks like for me. I really look forward to this process of rebuilding, and I'm going to take you guys along the journey. And the title of this video is my story of systematic spiral into financial chaos, because that's what it was. It's just a story of loss of family that was a financial strain, loss of my home, a loss of jobs, everything, whatever you can think of, just sort of happened during that period of time. And here we are. And at my age, it is not easy, I should say, to have to start all over. And I literally I am starting from scratch. But I am so thankful. I am so thankful because I know it could be worse. There were times when I thought we were going to end up living in our car, and the money I made from the house did not last very long. And why didn't it last long? I had to pay up some debts, which I couldn't even pay off all of my debt. But then, because I had lost my job, what I had intended to put to debt, I couldn't put all of that to debt. And then with the cost of living so high where I was, I needed that money to support myself while I wasn't working. So, it depleted. It depleted very, very quick. So this is where we are. Trying not to dwell on what was, and there's a million and one things I could say, but it is what it is. And there's some things that I probably could have done differently, but I know there's also a lot that I did not have any control over. And we have to prepare, I guess, our lives for those eventualities as well. So my new financial plan, my budget, I am going to share that with you guys in my next video. And I'm going to take you on the journey with me of recovery from financial chaos. All right, guys, I'll see you in my next video. If you made it to the end, thank you. Give the video a thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe. If you know somebody else that's been through a hard time and they just want to hear someone else's story, and just so that they know they're not the only ones that has struggled and is struggling, share my video. Let them know they're not alone. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.